Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Evan McCauley, president of the club, and we are thrilled to have you joining us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. Come out and join us for a meeting. We'd love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact that we are having on the local community and world, please visit rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and be the inspiration.
You know, Evan, if that jacket were blue, we would think you were one of our foreign exchange students. Notice how he's decked out this morning. Join me this morning in saying the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And for our invocation this morning, Liz Ramsey.
Good morning. Let's bow. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the blessings you put into our lives. We pray this morning for unity in our country. We pray for the military that keeps us safe. We pray for blessings to be on everybody here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Liz. And let's light up the room this morning. Chris Barker is going to kick us off with a song.
All right. Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Okay, so some of my friends at this table over here,
The good boy table.
the big boy table, picked out this song, Let Me Call You Sweetheart. So if everyone would please join with me and sing the song, because I'm not sure if I know the whole song.
We'll carry you.
Yeah, sure will. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. Keep the love light glowing in your eyes so blue. Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Thank you.
How fitting. That was wonderful. So we'll kick it off. Chris Barker's going to come back to the microphone and introduce our guests. We have a long list of guests, folks from our cluster, and also district leadership. So feel free and please introduce yourself to these folks that we're going to introduce now. Chris.
Thank you. Good morning again. So I'm going to announce the people the visitors we have with us today who are going to join afterwards for the cluster meeting. But I noticed there's a few that I didn't catch. So at the end, if they could please just stand up and tell us who their name and where they're visiting us from, that would be great. So first we have Beverly Skrzinski. She's from the Cleveland Club and District Governor. Thank you for joining us. And then we have her husband, Dave Skrzinski, past District Governor. We have Jacob Jackson from the Hudson Clock Tower Club. Carrie Lysing from Stone Monroe Falls. Dean Timmons from the Northampton Cuyahoga Valley Club. Bob Oborn from the Stone Monroe Falls Club, and he's also Assistant Governor. And then we have John Reyes, District Governor-elect. And then the few gentlemen who joined us.
Rick Paulin, Cuyahoga Falls. Ray Krasinski, the Northampton Cuyahoga Valley.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us today.
Wow. It's not often that our guests might outnumber us today, but welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. After the meeting this morning, the cluster is going to be meeting and talking about our projects and what each club has going on, figure out how we can help each other make an impact in the local community. So please feel free to join the cluster meeting. That'll be at 8:30 to 9:30 in the Greenwood private dining room. So we're gonna get started here with some announcements. Then we have a special new member induction, and then we'll get right into our featured program this morning. So announcements. What do we have going on at Rotary? Well, there's a number of things going on in our district. Coming up on the 21st of February, there's a Cavs game. It's a Rotary Youth Exchange night up at the Q. So please feel free to join in on that. February 21st, there's going to be a pregame at 6 p.m. Please let me know if you can go to that event. There will be a Hudson Rotary Foundation trustee meeting on the 20th. Another cool announcement, I wanted to highlight that one of our members, George Snyder, is joining a special force in Hudson, and that special force is the Senior Citizens Advisory Council. That's something that Mayor David Basil put together to try to make an impact and improve the lives for our senior citizens here. So great job, folks. Thanks for being out there and working on our behalf. Alrighty, we're gonna get into our new member induction. So I'd like to call Richard Nebbiolo forward, and also our new member, Scott Naples. Just quick backdrop. I do look like a Rotary Youth Exchange student with all of these pins on here. And the reason for that, last week we had a new member induction, and I'm up here, and for some reason my pin and my badge stayed in my pocket. And the membership let me know it, so I'm all suited up today. And you know what I really found out, and I'll get into this quickly, Jim Ahern actually noticed, but he didn't want to call me out. So he told Andy, who obviously would speak up. So that's how things are working here. Alrighty, new member induction. Scott, thanks for being here. And Scott, on behalf of the board and the membership of the Rotary Club of Hudson, it is a great pleasure to welcome you as the newest member of our club. We look forward to the fellowship that we will share, as well as your participation in many club projects that make our community, country, and world a better place in which to live. Rotary activities exemplify the charity and sacrifice that one would expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. Scott Naples, you have been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Hudson because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in our community, and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. As you know, you're going to receive a pin and a badge this morning, and it's a great idea to wear that pin anytime you're out in the community, and especially anytime that there's going to be a photograph. I'm looking at Mayor Basil here. Our community will know and judge Rotary by your character and service, Scott. We will also look to you for inspiration as we strive to become better Rotarians. We now ask your sponsoring Rotarian, we did ask his sponsoring Rotarian, Bill Benoit, to be here this morning. And Bill is one of our newest members that sponsored Scott, and the two are doing amazing things at university hospitals. So we ask you to wear your Rotary pin in public with pride. And without further ado, fellow Rotarians, can you please rise once again and welcome our newest Rotarian, Scott Naples.
Okay. All right, so Evan asked me to say a few words about myself so that way everybody here can get to know me a little bit better. So I guess the important things about me to know are I'm originally from Warren, Ohio. Graduated, all right, there you go. Howland High School graduate, class of 2003. Another Howland alum, wow, that's impressive. From there I went to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. Graduated in 2009 with my doctorate in pharmacy. That's where I met my wife. Moved up to Cleveland, Ohio shortly after that to begin my illustrious career as a pharmacist. That's where I started to work for UH. I was originally a pediatric pharmacist at Rainbow Babies and Children's. Basically huffed that job for a while till 2015. The opportunity came available for me to move down to UH Portage Medical Center as a pharmacy manager. That's where I met Bill Benoit, and that's how I came here. 2016, I graduated from Kent with my MBA, and basically a few other things to know about me. I live obviously in Hudson, right on the corner of Stowe and Norton. There's a old white house there. That's mine. It was built in 1870. So I guess some of the hobbies about me, home remodeling, because I had to. I had no choice. Let's see here, baseball, go Tribe, and obviously with the last name like Naples, what kind of an Italian would I be if I did not make wine? So, with that said, glad to be a part of this organization. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. We're excited to have you, and we are all excited to try your wine, too. All right, just backtracking quickly. One other item that's coming up that's a really cool event is our district four-way test contest. And what we're looking for right now on the district level is judges for the final event. So if you're able to, please let me know if you're considering being a judge. That's on April 6th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Aurora High School. You have the opportunity to hear some of the best speakers that you probably ever will. So if you want that opportunity, please talk to me more and we'll get you set up for that. Getting into our program this morning, I'd like to call Mayor Dave Basil forward to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Evan, and good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. In a sure sign of spring, perhaps the surest, pitchers and catchers reported yesterday. Go Tribe! It's my honor today to introduce our speaker. Jim Stifler is a fellow civic servant here in Hudson. He is Hudson's Economic Development Director. Jim is a 26-year resident of Hudson. He and his wife, Karen, have 3 grown sons, ages 22 to 28. He retired from J.P. Morgan in early 2015, where he worked with some of their largest corporate clients. A little bit of a connection that we have, and we didn't even know it because we had about 4 years that overlapped at Chase. I think you were part of Legacy Chase, and I was part of Legacy Chemical, and that's a merger that went down in the early 90s. When he left Chase, he thought he was, quote, done. And then he saw the opening for the Economic Development Director at the City of Hudson about 18 months later. He recast himself and became our Economic Development Director about 2.5 years ago. Asked him what his favorite parts about the job are. Being in the middle of everything, seeing tangible changes, innovating, and thinking about Hudson's future. Something we both share. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to Jim Stifler.
Got a lot of toys up here. What do I do with this? I could probably use this out in my day job. I could probably use this.
When are you joining Rotary?
Which one? The only one. Well, good morning, Rotarians. Thanks for having me, and I want to begin by saying it's a privilege to not just to work for you, but to work alongside you. So thanks for all you do for Hudson. As the mayor said, I'm having a ball in this job. I'm a business person, not a government guy. And so I bring a little bit different perspective. And if people ask me what I did, I'd say really it boils down to simply connecting people and ideas. And in my mind, they're all outside. I probably spend about half my time in the office and the rest of the time out in the community, and that's the good stuff. So in a basic sense, as an economic development director, I have to attract businesses to grow our tax base, and I have to retain the businesses we have. So even on the retention side, I just did the calculations. Last year we had about 86 meetings with businesses in Hudson to keep them here. The majority of my time is spent with the significant businesses that want to locate in Hudson. And then the smaller businesses I support through my roles with the Chamber of Commerce and Destination Hudson. Some of the other things I'm involved in our strategy for the business broadband, which we call Velocity Broadband, growing that and getting businesses to view that as integral to their success. I'm on the team that's about to redevelop downtown, what we call Phase 2. And then, as the mayor said, I spend a lot of time thinking about innovation and spurring innovation. You know, I cherish everything that's Hudson, but it's not $17.99 anymore. And I think on my first day of the job, I went to a big conference down in Columbus, and the retired mayor of Columbus, Michael Coleman, who served for 16 years, said it took him about 5 or 6 years to figure out how to run a city the size of Columbus. And he said until he did this, realized this, he hadn't done a really good job. He said, I need to spend a third of my time dealing with the crisis of the day. Because in a city of that size, that could mean life or death. It could mean reputational harm. He said, I spend a third of my time keeping the trains running on time. At this time of the year, that means filling potholes or moving snow, okay? And he said, the hardest part to make time for, but essential, is to spend a third of my time thinking in the future. So I took that on the very first day. So a lot of what I do is thinking about Hudson's narrative, the way we're seen. I believe you can go out and you can fight hand-to-hand combat with 15 other communities for a single business that wants to relocate, or you can reshape the way your community is seen at the highest levels and see who that attracts. And that has been my modus operandi. So I'm pleased to report this morning that from an economic development perspective, you know, Hudson is very, very healthy right now. The American economy is obviously healthy. There's some, you know, clouds out on the horizon, but you know, the economy is doing quite well. Hudson's doing quite well. You probably know about Hudson Crossing Industrial Parkway. I think it's over here. It's across from Christ Community Chapel, Route 303 and 8. It's sat empty for 15 years. If you fast forward to today, now there are 7 buildings up around the way. There's 10 businesses there. There's $91 million of net investment. There are now promised or existing 741 jobs, generating just north of $50 million in payroll on that street. And there's $41 million worth of buildings sitting there or on the way. 600,000 square feet of space, 7 industry sectors out there. So that's an example of really a very fast start in the last 2 or 3 years in Hudson. And just recently, we did a 36-month look back at job creation in the city as part of an application we submitted for citywide recognition. And we determined that over the last 3 years, the trailing 36 months, Hudson has added at least 1,850 jobs. Now, I say at least because to derive that number, we looked at the 741 jobs on Hudson Crossing, and then we talked to 8 or 9 of our top 20 businesses in town. I mean, there's roughly depending on how you measure them, between 650 and 700 businesses in the community right now. And that's not home-based businesses or anything like that. So you couldn't go to all those. But if I talk to the top 15 or 20, we've created 1,850 jobs in the last 3 years in Hudson. And the American Community Survey, which is an offshoot of the U.S. Census Bureau, they do ACS surveys in the off years, said that at the end of 2015, we had 11,896 jobs in Hudson. For those of you who are interested, 10,421 people come into Hudson to work every day. 1,475 of our residents live and work here. So if you add or you divide 1,850 jobs by 11,896, we've had about a 16% increase in people working in Hudson in the last 3 years. And the income tax revenues have ticked up noticeably. In 2017, income tax revenues in the city of Hudson, and those are what pay for the city, by the way. Your property taxes, as you know, go to the schools, the county, and programs that the county sponsors, the library, things like that. But income tax revenues in 2017 were up a little bit more than 9%, and last year they were up 11%. So some of this stuff is really just starting to kick in, but I think it bodes well for Hudson in the future. Now, some of the positive factors, what's led to this? Well, first of all, the businesses that are choosing Hudson are what I refer to as future-friendly businesses. It costs 50% more in terms of property tax to locate here than it does in communities that are at our borders. So almost by definition, we don't get a warehouse or a distribution center here. It's cheaper to do that next door and simply live here, raise a family here. So that sort of divides the list of business candidates right off the bat. Among those that are choosing to be here are what I call future-friendly, or businesses that are really positioned well for the future, and this bodes well for Hudson. Some of the types of businesses have made up this growth that we've talked about: medical devices, telemedicine, polymer science, cybersecurity, financial forensics. Sounds like CSI at CSI for money. It's money laundering and white-collar crime. 250 people here focus on that. Homeland security, healthcare, wellness. These are the kinds of businesses that match the demographic trends in America. These are the kinds of businesses that have strong balance sheets, young, well-educated, high-earning employees. So Hudson's really lucky. The other thing I think, and I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, is sort of recrafting the narrative for Hudson. I'm the first to say, as a 26-year resident, schools, history, charm, they've all been our cornerstones for a long, long time. But today's business head, today's CEO is saying, okay, give me everything you got, because you're going to cost quite a bit more than the folks right around you in terms of places to locate. So part of my game plan has been to reshape the narrative. And I think that fresh elements like innovation, fiber optic networks, social responsibility, thoughtful growth, all of these things are fresh elements, and business leaders are taking note of this, and they're responding by placing their trust in us and locating their business here. You'll be among the first to know this, but on Monday night in Quebec City, the Intelligent Community Forum, a global think tank of nearly 2,000 communities from 5 continents, moved Hudson from the Smart 21 Intelligent Communities of the Year, which we were in 2018, and we were selected again in 2019. The 21 gets cut to 7 in the world, and Hudson, Ohio made the top 7 in the world the other night. Now, you played a role in all of that. Everyone in Hudson does. It's my job to help the community understand what that means. You don't get a trophy. There's not a badge. We could probably find one for Evan. But But it's a way of thinking. It's a destination. It's not a destination, I should say. It's a journey. It's, are we thinking about social and economic growth in the right way? And we get to draw on a database of 2,000 communities in the world. And by the way, of that top 7, we are the smallest. Okay, Westerville, Ohio also made it. They're about twice our size. The only other American city was Chicago, Illinois, which is several million people. Australia was represented, Canada was represented, Taiwan was represented. And we'll be rewarded with a visit from the leaders of this organization in early April. And they will do a 2-day dissection of Hudson to see what makes us special. And then in June in New York City, they take the 7 down to the Intelligent Community of the Year, which last year was a community called Espoo, Finland. Okay, our real goal here is over the next year or two, working with friends in cities like Dublin, Westerville, and 3 or 4 other Ohio cities, is we're going to enter this thing as an intelligent Ohio and try to stitch Ohio together and pick up Ohio's fortunes. And you can enter as a region. So in 2020 and beyond, that will probably be our game. I think it's a tall order, although I'm not ruling it out, for a 22,000 person community in northeastern Ohio to be the Intelligent Community of the Year in the world. But just thinking this way has made us better. And the punchline really here is that, this kind of framework, this kind of thinking appeals to business owners. And increasingly, it appeals to their younger, highly educated, very intelligent workforces. So we help them win the war for talent. And in doing so, we glue these people to Hudson. We really do. So that's the excitement. That's the secret sauce. People say, well, how's this all happening? I'll be honest. Some of it's economic expansion. America's doing well right now. Some of it's timing. Some of it's the fact that there's no land or real estate on a relative basis in northeastern Ohio. We have half the commercial industrial vacancies that the United States has on average. I'd like to think that there's a little magic wand in there, but I think a lot of it is the fresh narrative and the new coat of paint we're putting on this beautiful community. So it's interesting, if you look at our top 25 payroll sources, payroll income tax sources, 6 or 7 of them now are these new communities have just located. They've just rocketed onto the list. And that's gratifying. So a couple of thoughts. What will be developed next? Hudson Crossing has 2 lots left. So I think you can see an office building there, probably started not this year, but next year. And then in 2021, the second office building right at the entryway. There are some city-owned lots now that are drawing a lot of interest on Boston Mills Road. I think there's a great potential to have some new office buildings, right up the street here, across from the River Oaks area and by where the city's currently rented administrative space is. District 8 and 9, that's essentially down at the southern end of Hudson between 91 and Hudson Drive. A big catalyst there, I've got to tell you, will be the City Hall moving down there. That's going to jumpstart that area. We've met with a lot of the landowners down there. A lot of them have been very quiet over the years and not really communicative about their land holdings, but there are some things freeing up down there. I think you're going to see a fair bit of development in District 8 and 9. And then I think downtown Phase 2 poses a tremendous opportunity for Hudson. So some of the things that are going to impact growth going forward and some of the challenges, downtown, in my mind, is a must-have. I don't care about the houses. I want them to look like Hudson. People can argue about what they look like all day long. The office buildings down there will attract the highest paying employees and the highest paying businesses anywhere in the city. We have 0 downtown office space. I like to say we're a Class A town, but we have no Class A vacancy. So in my mind, downtown Phase 2 has to happen. The average W-2 in those buildings will be the highest anywhere in Hudson. The new Hudson School campus, again, that's always been our go-to. Everyone knew we were cute and charming and historical. The schools were the cornerstone, and the schools are getting better as we speak. And if you haven't driven by there, just seeing the earth move and and all the stuff that's out there is really exciting. The broadband network to business. We're refining the plan right now to grow it for business. Residential still a big question mark. Don't need to go there this morning, but I think we're going to enhance and continue to build our business network, because the kinds of businesses I told you were coming here are either fiber dependent or fiber friendly. And the top 20 taxpayers in Hudson, 9 or 10 of them use Velocity Fiber, and 4 or 5 of them already have fiber or have outsourced all of their IT to someone who's given them 2 or 3 sources of fiber. So our market share, the top 20 taxpayers for fiber, is higher than our market share for fiber across the entire base of roughly 230 users now. So fiber-friendly businesses, you know, are going to look to this. Boston Heights, they're our next door neighbor. We want to see that area develop thoughtfully. You know, we need some hotels. There's potential for that over there. We own a lot of land on Hines Hill Road. I think that's still 2 or 3 years away from being developed. But a big part of the development will depend on what they choose to put at the end of the road, because that'll be the nearest civilization, you know, for the people who elect to work in on that land that we call the former YDC. The Ohio Turnpike, it's really in Boston Heights, but exit 180, as you know, is getting more congested. And when you come off of 180, you go into that crazy interchange over there. We've met a few times with the Turnpike. The Turnpike's well aware of this, and they want to clean up that whole exit and add capacity and 10 more lanes, or maybe not 10, but a bunch more easy pass exits, things like that. So those things will all help with our growth. You know, Hudson's got if you go home and take a 4 or 5 year nap, you know, you're going to wake up with a lot of nice enhancements between downtown schools, fiber growth, things like that. So our challenges, what worries me, or what do I think we have to focus on? We have to look at our population. We've not grown in 20 years, okay? We're absolutely flat. And while I want to preserve charm and character, flat's not necessarily a good thing. And I mean, we are absolutely flat, you know? And within that, our median age, half of all people above, half of all people below, is starting to hockey stick. We are now older than Ohio. We're older than the United States. The median age of Hudson is 45. Ohio is 38. The U.S. is 37.8. Columbus, which is by any measure rocking Ohio right now, 31.8. Youngest nation in the world, or country in the world, Africa, 18.8. So that's going to play out interestingly in the next few decades. Oldest industrialized nation in the world, and this terrifies them, is Japan at 46. Hudson is 45. Okay, I'm with you. I'm 61 now. You know, I'm proud of that. But you know, just getting older is not a good thing. We need if we were a if we were a trout. Yeah, I agree with that. But if we were a trout pond, we need some young fish in this pond. So the other thing that worries me is our median housing cost. It's $326,000 right now, so there's a barrier to entry. And there's a lot of discussion about housing. But we've got to figure it out, because CEOs want to live where they work. Okay, you know who picks where the CEO lives? Their spouse, man or woman. And you know, most CEOs live within 20 minutes of the company they oversee. So we've got to figure this out. We need new housing. With the exception of the 2 newer Pulte developments, you know, our newest stuff is 30 years old now. So we've got to take a look at that, and we need to address the price diversity too, if we are to get some young people here. Online retail. You know, everybody talks about Amazon, but an aging community also impacts our merchants too. And our merchants are battling right now. You know, there are a lot of questions about the future of downtowns anywhere in America. But I'm here to say ours is still pretty darn healthy. There are a few vacancies on Main Street right now, but there's a lot of interest in those vacancies. A couple of them are taken, but they have not been realized yet. The vacancies in First and Main, the newer part, are what I call strategic vacancies. That project's 12 years old now. They're freshening up. that whole concept and bringing it forward. The developer, Fairmont, has had a great success on their hands with Pinecrest up off Orange and or 271 in Orange, and they've got a lot of fresh ideas about retailers. And I'm here to tell you, any vacancy you see in First and Main is either a function of the interested parties not agreeing to the rental rates yet because they don't really budge, or a fresh ideas on the way. So don't let a few empty storefronts worry you yet. But I think we have to think about that. Amazon's out there, they're not going away. Retailers can't control that. But as the community ages, people spend less money and they go out a little less, things like that. So I think we need to be mindful of that. The other things, I think, in closing, telemedicine. You know, last year 25 million people went to the doctor on a remote basis. That's going to soar. We've got a company in Hudson, a startup, GTS Virtual Health, that's had over $7 million invested in it right now. They're leading the wave in this kind of thing. And we've got a lot of doctors and medical facilities in Hudson, so we want to think about that. The way we communicate with residents is going to change, you know. Cord cutting of cable, really nationally, no one under 35 subscribes to cable anymore. You see the newspapers getting thinner and delivered fewer days each week, so we've got to interface differently, and we've got to be ever mindful of automation and technology. In terms of opportunities, I think that you know, the big goal in all this intelligent community stuff, the big idea is aligning the triad of business, education, and government. So Hudson essentially, in 2 years of thinking about how to be more intelligent, is basically lined up all of our good examples. Now our challenge is to say, here's our examples. Let's get more business involvement in this one. Let's get more educational involvement in this one. Because when you have business, education, and government working together on a good idea, that's when it really starts to take off. I think there's a lot of opportunity to look at the intersection of preservation, which is important to us all, and innovation. Okay, and we're going to meet soon with the Hudson Heritage Association to talk a little bit about that. So all in all, really, really good news in Hudson, and it's been great fun, and I'm gratified by some of the results we've achieved, but the credit really goes to everyone in the community. I mean, you know, if representing Hudson is a nice thing to be able to do. So with that, I'll take any questions you have. Anything? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am?
Oh, I'm waiting for the mic.
Oh, you're waiting for the mic, okay.
Okay, on. My question is this, and this is because I am a planner and therefore future-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that concerns me is that on the equivalent basis with economic development, we need to be thinking explicitly about the environmental services that are required for quality of life support, actually life support, period. One of the things that concerns me about the capacity of the natural environment here is we're stuck in a karst topography with lots of wetlands. We keep filling them in, and that is going to be at the cost of future flooding and the loss of some serious environmental services in terms of what wetlands actually do. So we're also facing the Midwest equivalent of climate change impacts, and for us that's kind of like the boiled frog syndrome. We don't figure out what's going on until it hits us between the eyes. But that's the difference between drought and rain cycles. So my question is, while we are pursuing both new residential and new industrial commercial development, what is the thought that's going into ensuring that public services, runoff, because we're in an area that's under the gun for dealing with land runoff. Keep those public services up to date, which means public investment, and that will have the capacity to absorb in the natural environment the additional stress that comes from the kind of development, what development does on this kind of land. So it's kind of a complicated question, but I haven't heard much discussion about that in relation to all the different development phases that were going on. And when that doesn't happen, communities suddenly find themselves in some conundrums. So that's a complicated question, but anyway.
It's a multi-layered question, but it's a thoughtful question, and I would respond in a number of ways. First of all, if you look at how a community's progress is measured by organizations like the Intelligent Community Forum, there are 6 pillars that they look at. One is broadband, and on all these, it's not just having it, it's what you're doing to solve problems and make life better. So broadband, knowledge workforce, digital equality, innovation, sustainability, and advocacy. And sustainability, I would think, is one of the areas where Hudson has a lot of upside, and we have to realize that upside. We've started. We have some positive forces for change. Our new 37th Ohio District House member, Casey Weinstein, is big in this area. We are starting as part of our efforts and working with the other communities that are on their game in Ohio to look at things like the Great Lakes cluster around watershed issues. A lot of these things are in the offing, and I hear you. I've lived here for 26 years. Relatively speaking, Hudson's in a low spot. And the other thing I would say is we have the sharpest engineering group in this town that I have seen. And I think they are doing a lot with what's been brought to them. And I think some of their partners, Environmental Design Group in Akron and others, are on this. So I'm encouraged by what I see, but I think it's a real issue. And we have to balance everything we hope to achieve against those types of things. And an extraordinary amount of thought and care has gone into these issues around the planning of the downtown addition. You know, yeah. Phil?
Hey, Jim. Great report on the city. I'd like to add another item that's there that is a resource for Hudson, and it's a good report card. And that is, over the last 20 years or 30 years, about 30 years now, Hudson has become a center of philanthropy. And it's something you don't even talk about because typically people think of Hudson as being business and community. But if you look on the green, you see something really amazing there. There are 4 pillars on the green there right now, including the Burton D. Morgan Foundation on one corner, the Peg Morgan Foundation on the other corner, the Hudson Community Foundation right in front of the old library there, and then our gift fund, iGift Fund, which is, we're on the 5 East Main Street there. And if you go a little bit farther down the road where Tom is, you know, you really end up with a major center of philanthropy in Hudson, which is really a positive thing.
I would agree, and you know, even recent movements, giving circles, 100 Women Strong is now in Hudson, 200 women almost, I believe, and I heard last night they're about to make their first gifts in the next few days. So one of the things that I neglected to mention, but it's here in my notes, is in terms of opportunities for the future, is aligning some of our city endeavors with some of these organizations a little bit more closely, because it is a unique resource here in Hudson, and there is a lot of potential. In Hudson, I've created a group that some of you are aware of to advise the city. It is 78 members strong, and these are CEOs, leaders, presidents, chairmen, founders, and formers of major northeastern Ohio entities. They're not just corporations, they're educational institutions, they're foundation heads, and there's about 15 innovators in there to kind of stir the pot. But there are 78 major leaders of northeastern Ohio who make their home here that I've identified. And only 4 or 5 of them run their business in Hudson. So there is a lot of horsepower here, not just philanthropic horsepower, but intellectual horsepower that the city can tap into. So I agree with you entirely. So, other questions? Yes, sir.
In relation to the broadband,
Yes.
in relation to the broadband, has there been any discussion or look at creating a city-wide or at least downtown-wide wireless network available to guests that are coming into Hudson? I know other communities across the country are moving in that direction, and as we all become more dependent on that technology, we have this great fiber network that we are rolling out to the businesses, but is there a way to tap into that and utilize that for business and economic growth through that facet?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jake. I think that, that's, it's a hot potato right now. I'm very proud of what's been accomplished with Velocity Broadband. It was launched before I got here, but I think the foresight that enabled the city to get into that business and what we've done is tremendous. We were in Westerville the other day, again, one of the top 7 intelligent communities now in the world. They have a 6-year-old broadband effort in their town. And they have a college in their town, and they're on the edge of Columbus. After 6 years, they have 60 customers. We have 230. So we're at an inflection point right now. And while residential is out there, I think that's kind of a back burner issue right now. We've got to get the downtown built. We've got to get. We've got a lot of city council up for election this year, and then we have to figure out how and if to fund things as expensive as residential broadband. It's very, very expensive. We have right now wireless outdoor access points. They were used at the Republican National Convention, and they were given to us by a large technology company. And right now we deploy those downtown for special events, things like Taste of Hudson to run credit cards, for the farmers market, things like that. I think the next step is potentially to have a wireless network downtown that's full-time, full-on. Right now, many of the merchants downtown are connected physically to the Velocity Broadband network.
Well, that's going to be faster for the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Still want to invest in that.
Right.
I'm thinking more for their customers, for the guests that are
Mm-hmm.
interacting with coming into Hudson, especially the farmers market.
Right.
Any of those sorts of events that occur downtown. We have a lot of evening and weekend events, which is great. But it'd be great to have that available to the residents that are participating in that.
I would agree. I think our next effort with Velocity will be to expand and further our organic growth, and we're going to have to weigh cost-benefit on opportunities like that, because if we do something like put it in its own enterprise fund, which is under consideration right now, so it'd be treated like electric or water, have its own bucket of money and live or die on those terms. I think we're going to have to look at the value of doing some of these kinds of things relative to hooking up additional businesses. But it's on the radar, I can assure you. Jim, did you have a question back?
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm curious about the 47-year-old average. How much of that is skewed by the growing Laurel Lakes of Hudson?
It's 45. We're actually younger, Jim. We're 45. Japan's 46. It's a function of a lot of things. It's based on registered voters, so you have to be registered to vote here, and it's also a function of our housing costs and things like that. It takes a little bit of money to be able to live here, raise a family here. So these are all things that I think we need to look at. You can't turn that around on a dime. I think young people, I have 3 of them, they need to go away. I love to see young kids graduate and go work in another country or New York City or something like that for a few years. When they come back to us, hey, they're wiser, they're better informed, they're more experienced, they're going to make better residents. So my goal is not to suddenly have an influx of 23-year-olds, but it'd be fun to have them back here a year or two before they realize, oh my gosh, we're going to start a family, we must get in these schools. Get them back a year or two earlier. And there's got to be something for them. And the something, the magic special sauce, if you will, for young people today will be things like somewhat more attainable housing, different styles. At least in my household, the kids don't want 1 to 2 acre lots and 4,000 square feet. Today's kids want to go do experience. And, my generation was, we wanted stuff. We wanted houses, cars, cash. The new kids are they're world changers, and so I think we need to address that, and we need to figure out how to make Hudson attractive. If fiber ever does happen on a citywide basis, that will be like, what do you put the honey in the bird feeder and all the hummingbirds come? That'll be what happens if the town has fiber. So, yeah. So, other questions? Mayor?
Could you expand a little bit on the educational component of the Smart 21, and especially the connection of Hudson Schools, the Academy, and the Lang Laboratory in that equation?
Sure. One of the so again, remember the intelligent community movement, and the difference between an intelligent community and a smart city. Let me tell you that first of all. An intelligent community is theoretical. It's how are you engineering social and economic growth for better outcomes for the residents. A smart city, another term you often hear. In my mind, that's the more practical aspect. Smart city is street level stuff. It's we're about to put in traffic lights at some of our major intersections that will talk to each other over fiber 10 times a second. So they'll know the situation everywhere in town and ease traffic flow. Smart street lighting, municipal lighting. We have a street lighting pilot right now. That's smart city stuff. So at the intelligent level, you're looking at broadband for change, you're looking at knowledgeable workforces, you're looking at digital equality. And by the way, digital inequality multiplies income inequality. So we've got to watch that. You're looking at innovation, sustainability, and advocacy. The schools and some of their projects are the very reasons Hudson has been recognized. I see Phil Herman here, he and his team, the Hudson schools, are really unmatched. Their Bloodhound project that taught elementary school kids about, supersonic automotive efforts, out of Britain this year was written about in our applications for these recognitions. Their efforts around digital equality with one-to-one devices in the schools and rooting out inequality in our communities. We're waiting to hear on a grant right now that could address some pockets of digital inequality in our city and in our schools. The Lang Innovation Center is a 6,000 square foot makerspace at Western Reserve Academy. There is not another one of these, to my estimation, at a high school in the country. This thing is a showstopper. We took those 78 business leaders I mentioned in there about a year ago, and they were just slack-jawed. And it's gotten better ever since then. So it's a makerspace, and it's the center of the campus community now. And if you look at something like that and you compare it to Hudson's value proposition, it's the center of that school's value proposition. And with the cost and the requirement that you send your kids off to go there, you better have a pretty strong value proposition. But to the mayor's question, last year, those students that used the makerspace, called the Wong Innovation Center, did over 200 projects for 45 area businesses. The school's goal last year was to have that space break even. It actually made money. And these kids are getting real hands-on learning. And this kind of effort is underway in the Hudson schools as well. In some of these schools, if you're a ninth grader now, a freshman, incoming freshman, for half the year, you take a class called Learn to Make, which is just realizing your dreams. Go forth and create, use these tools. The other half of the year, you take a class called Learn to Code. They learn to write software code as freshmen. Okay, so the world is changing this rapidly. And I heard a speaker at the library recently say he's written 30 books, and he's a futurist. So organizations as big as GE and Microsoft pay this individual to come and keep them on their toes. In the next 100 years, we will witness 20,000 years of innovation. So, the schools are at the forefront of that. And whether the schools here are public, private, Montessori, parochial, even the schools just outside our borders, we have a wonderful range of options and intellectual opportunities for our young people. And that is another reason that people are electing to be in Hudson. So, one last question? Okay, thanks for having me. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Jim. That was a wonderful presentation, and sounds like Hudson is heading in the right direction. I love the area over on 303 and Route 8, Hudson Crossing. For those 15 years, I don't know how many times I thought to myself, is anything ever going to go over there? So thank you for sharing the crazy statistics that are taking place today. One item, we were expecting to have a special guest with us. We signed a card last week. Unfortunately, our guest was unable to join us, and that's Lee Pearsall. Tomorrow is Lee Pearsall's birthday, and I just wanted to also mention that coming up is almost 1 year since Dick Pearsall, our longtime Rotary guy, passed away. So keep him in your thoughts, and happy birthday, Lee. I hope you're tuning in and seeing this. We were wishing. It's her 100th birthday? Wow, okay, thanks for correcting me. I didn't want to say the age wrong. Well, happy 100th birthday, Lee Pearsall. That's wonderful. Couple other updates, and then we'll get on the way here. Cuyahoga Falls has an upcoming event on Saturday, March 2nd. There's a reverse raffle. Cost of that is $65. Please let me know if you'd like to join me at that event. And pull out those tickets. I didn't forget about you. We'll do the Road-Bug raffle here. All right, payout $11, jackpot $286. And we'll have District Governor Bev pull the winning ticket for us. Last four, 8426. All right, Bill Wooldridge, nice. Not today. Oh, you want your money back. All right. Thank you again to all of our guests. I hope that you enjoyed the meeting this morning. Jim, you did a great job. Again, thanks for being with us. We do have that cluster meeting following the meeting this morning. And with that, I'll leave you with a quote that I've probably shared with you before, but I think it's appropriate today. If you're ripe, you're rotten. If you're green, you're growing. Have a great day.